Nigeria has is a multi-religious society, that we have multi-ethnic groups and things like that. I believe it was late Gaddafi that suggested that Nigeria should divide on ethnic and religious lines. Okay, and of course, when he said it, it made sense. Considering the religious divide, considering the ethnic divide, maybe if Nigeria divides and every ethnic group or every religious group stands on their own, we have a northern, an Islamic north and a Christian south. That was the recommendation that he gave. But you also see that there are nations, when you go to India, where you also have more religious groups than even Nigeria. You see them, they are thriving in terms of industrialization, in terms of economic development, in terms of growth. So you discover that what builds cohesiveness within a society is not just the fact that we are saying let's come together. There has to be an ideology. There has to be some shared value. There has to be some shared, irrespective of our uniqueness. There has to be some, shared beliefs that forms the guiding foundation of what makes us a nation. Okay. So the last part of key characteristics of ideology is it is action oriented. So that means that it gives us, as individuals or as groups, something to take action on. Okay, so it has to be motivating. So ideology has to give us a perspective. It has to give us a goal. It has to build unity, and then most importantly, it has to be able to show us what to do. Okay, so why is ideology important? I'm going to move quickly to that. Why is ideology important? Because it provides direction and purpose. It provides direction and purpose. It shapes identity and belonging. It influences policies and decisions. Okay. It promotes social change. It resolves or escalates conflicts. It drives leadership and governance. It inspires innovation and progress. And it also supports societal cohesion. Okay. So it means that I'm sure if you look at your list, some of you have already dropped a list of what you believe to be Nigeria's problem. Okay, so you have mentioned leadership, you have mentioned lack of accountability, you have mentioned the ethnic and tribal divide. But you see, all those things are simply fruits. All those things are simply fruits that is showing that a society or an organization lacks ideology. That is what it simply tells us. Because once there is no guiding principle, leadership cannot function. When there is no guiding principle, we will not even know what our ethics and values are as a nation. Okay, so when there are no ideologies in place, that guiding principle, we won't even know what our dream is. Okay, I grew up, I think one of the books I studied when I was working with American Corner so many years ago as a student was The American Dream. It's a book I have up to today. I don't borrow it out. So when you read the book of American Dream, you see where the founding fathers of America sat down and they began to talk about the American dream. They began to talk about what it means to be an American. Okay, what an American should do for America and what America as a nation should do for their citizens. There was a dream, there was an ideal. If I ask you, what is the dream of Africa? If I ask you, what is the dream of the nation, Nigeria? If I ask you, what is the dream of your state? What is the dream of your local government? Permit me to even ask you, what is your personal dream in life? So you see that the society we have today is as a result of the dreams in our hearts. Okay, so poverty and chaos is man-made. The reason why we have poverty and chaos in Africa is because that's simply the dreams in our hearts. It means that we need to dream better, and it needs to move beyond us to begin to affect the nation. Okay, so ideology is that foundation that every other thing is built. Okay, so if I'm to now bring it, to the main point of this conversation, ideology is what builds trust. Okay. Trust is the second aspect of our values. I'm going to mention it before I finish. Salamatu started the conversation on ideology by talking about collaboration. So I'm just moving a step further to what she shared on collaboration to talk to you guys about trust. And everything we are doing in Power Shift, everything we are doing in this fellowship is anchored on those three principles or three values that we are going to be sharing with you. The first one is collaboration. The second one is trust. Okay. And the foundation for building collaboration, the foundation for building trust is an ideology. There must be an ideology that drives a community, that drives an institution, that drives a nation. Okay. So, what is the problem of Nigeria? If we are to look at Nigeria, existing for more than 60 years now, what do we say is our ideology? Is our problem? Is a lack of ideology. There is no common ground of agreement. There is no common ground of understanding. Okay, for instance, in Nigeria, we have a multi-ethnic group. How do we coexist? How do we see each other? How do we understand each other? Okay, we don't have an understanding of, we have different religious group. How do we exist? So at the end of the day, there is no guiding principle that tells us what we need to do as a nation. And that is why you now see, for instance, the leadership problem is as a result of individuals going into their office to serve maybe their individual need or their ethnic need or whatever need of any part of society that they identify with. Because there is no guiding principle that is uniting all of us. And if there is no guiding principle uniting all of us, there will not be trust. And if there is no trust, we can't build a nation. As long as an Igbo man does not trust an Hausa man, or an Hausa man does not trust a Yoruba man, you can't build a nation. We don't have power problem. We have an issue of trust. We don't have unemployment problem. We have an issue of trust, which is coming from the foundation of the wrong ideology. So until we begin to fix our mind, until we begin to have a new crop of leaders who will look at a nation not from the lens of any other thing, but a lens of what should work for us as a nation. Okay, so I mentioned before, if we look at America, for instance, America had founding fathers. Nigeria do not have founding fathers. I know usually we will talk about Nnamdi Azikiwe, Abafemi Awolowo, Tafawa Balewa, we mention, the fathers who are the pioneer, frontiers when it comes to, building Nigeria a nation. But they did not found Nigeria. They were not on a table. They didn't come together to say, okay, we want to form a country. I'm from this part of the nation, you are from this part of the nation, we want to form a country that will unite all of us. And this is the ideology that will govern this formation. There was no conversation like that. American founding fathers had a founding meeting. In that founding meeting, they had a founding statement. Today, we call it the founding documentation. If you go online, you find it. There is a founder's documentation that was written down before the Constitution. It was the founding document that gave birth to the Constitution. It was that founding document that stated the ideology of America. It was where the issue of liberalism was stated. It was where the issue of human rights was stated. It was even in that document that they state that if any other part was not honored in this organizational founding statement, they have the right to leave. So everything was done. And then from there, they crafted the Constitution to govern their nation. There's no founding document. I've always said, and I will continue to say it, it was part of my manifesto when I was running for election. I will continue to say it, that why I believe in one Nigeria, I believe that that new one Nigeria has to be renegotiated. Okay, I believe that we will all come to a table, sit down, irrespective of where we are, irrespective of class, irrespective of our religious inclination, wherever we are coming from, we need to come and sit on the table and ask ourselves, what do we want as a nation? What do we want as a people? Until we do that, Nigeria cannot work. We need to sit on a table and renegotiate Nigeria. So I'm not talking about a new Nigeria that we are blind to. I'm not talking about a new Nigeria that is based on wishful thinking. I'm not talking about a new Nigeria that is just based on our figments of our imagination. No, we want a new Nigeria but it has to be structured on an ideology that determines how we evolve as a society. So you go to America, you find their funding document. It tells you about the fairness of a society. I've mentioned human rights. It tells you about democracy, the people power, the fact that the nation is built on the platform that the people will have to elect their own leaders. It talks to you about human rights. It talks to you about independence. That is where they talk about an American owning a house, an American having a source of living, an American having a skill in order to impact their society. They talk about the sovereignty of their nation, how to protect and expand the American ideal and American nationalism. And today, that was what gave them a nation that is a dream of every other nation in the world today. The reason why we brought you into this fellowship, part of the reason why we brought you into this fellowship is to begin to raise this conversation so that you can start thinking differently. You are going to lead tomorrow. You are going to govern this nation or an aspect of this nation tomorrow. And we want you to begin to, think about what the issues are. We want you to begin to, look deeply into what the issues are. It's not just about fixing education. It's not about technological crisis. It's not about, refining our oil or managing our national and regional resources. No, it's about first asking ourselves, what do we want as a nation? How do we build a fair society where everybody can trust each other, irrespective of where they come from? How do we build a society that is fair to everyone, irrespective of your class, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your educational exposure, where whatever is accessible to the rich is also accessible to the poor within a society? Until we are able to have that conversation, then we are heading nowhere as a nation. I've often said it even in previous fellowship that I am looking forward, that through our activities in Power Shift, that one day we are going to have a national convergence from every local government, every ward in Nigeria. We are going to come together and then we sit on a table and we tell ourselves, this is what we want as a nation, and this is our dream as a nation, and this is what we want to fight for, what we want to live for, and what we want to die for. So it is lack of ideology. That is what is going to build that trust. That is what is going to build that collaboration. And of course, trust is going to take time. It's going to take time. We have to give each other opportunity to fail, try again, and then until it becomes a part of us. But the case of Nigeria is not just a case of corruption. It's a case of lack of ideology. It's an ideology that fixes corruption. And that is why when we even mention political parties in Nigeria, I call them that Nigeria does not have a political party, okay, because there's no ideology. You saw what happened in 2023, okay? A new political party emerged and came to limelight. We know them as Labour Party, and then some of them won an election. But what is going on? They are still even trickling down to other main political parties. Many of them are joining APC, some are joining PDP. So what happened to the reason why they even started in the first place? It shows you that there was no reason for starting in the first place. It's just about jumping vehicles. It's just about looking for opportunities and a way to promote your own personal or regional agenda. Because if there was a guiding principle, even if it's just one person that won office, that person will stand on that guiding principle, continue to push it all over the nation so that every other person will see what they are seeing, what they saw before getting into office that an average Nigerian is not seeing. So you see, it is a problem of ideology. It's not a problem of a political party. It's not a weak institution problem. It's a problem that we don't have a guiding light or a guiding focus or a guiding principle that drives our actions as Nigerians. Okay? So in Power Shift, we created what we call the process of change. Okay? And in the process of change, you will understand why. For instance, I'm doing a session on ideology. Salamatu did a session on ideology, I think last week. I'm doing another second session of ideology, which is building trust. You see from the image I'm showing on the screen, you see that the activities that we have as Power Shift as an organization is built on the foundation of an ideology. Is the ideology the way we think, what we believe, what we want to do, that is driving our efforts. So in our process of change, you see the first thing there is activism. That is why you hear a lot about activism in this session. Okay. The reason why we are hearing it is that it is the first pillar in the process of our change. Okay. So a lot of the things that you are going to be doing, your capstone project, all of it is going to be surrounding around activism. And I'm going to show you why. Okay. The second one is engagement. And then the third one is political participation. So when we talk about our process, when we talk about the foundation of ideology, why are we focusing on activism? Activism is first about making you an active citizen. Leadership and followership is a shared responsibility. Okay, so it is not just a leader that determines how a nation, must function or how a nation must grow. There is a shared responsibility between the leaders and those who are governed. So if you see, for instance, what happened in the compulsory voting bill that was repealed last week, a lot of people began to speak out. A lot of people began to say, no, that we don't want this. A lot of people began to express their concerns that this is not even, you can't even legislate who votes and who doesn't vote. And when the people began to raise their voice, what happens is that it was repealed. Okay, so you see that active citizenship means that you have to contribute your voice. You have to contribute your voice. And why we are saying so much about social media, saying so much about digital activism, is that it gives us a low-hanging fruit. That as a citizen, as an individual, you can begin to raise your voice to issues about your society, to issues about your community, in such a way that even those who are led and those who lead understand what those issues are, and they are able to respond to it. But more so, the value that we are emphasizing in this stage of activism is not just your ability to raise your voice, but your ability to raise your voice together with others. Okay? Nigerians have done activism, young people have done activism, but what we have not done well in is collaboration. We have not done well in coming together to collaborate. So what we have is isolated voices. So we have a voice in the north, we have a voice in the east, we have a voice in the west. All of them are doing their isolated activism. Okay, so maybe you might have Sowore somewhere, you have Isaiah Sufu somewhere, you have what's this new famous guy? I'm trying to remember his name. I've forgotten. The black guy. The dark
Very dark
Very
man.
dark man.
Very dark man.
Very dark man is raising his voice. But you see, these are isolated voices. Isolated voices do not give birth to change. Isolated voices, so it has to start with one person. But you see, we must find a way to organize what that one person is saying in a way to come together as one voice, and then it amplifies that active citizenship. So active citizenship is not just Nonso expressing his concern or Amina expressing her concern. It's about the collective concern of the citizens in a way that it is organized and it becomes a formidable front. And that is one thing young people have not been able to do. So if there's protest, we just come for that temporary protest. But we have not been able to organize ourselves collaboratively in order to bring about change. When APC raised their presidential form to 100 million, many people were complaining about it. And I was invited to an interview in AIT. It was in Abuja then. And they were asking me my opinion. And I said, I don't have any problem with it. And they say, but young people can't afford it. I said, no, there's nothing like young people can afford it. Young people can afford it. There was a day I remember Davido said he wanted to buy a car, or I can't remember what happened. And you saw it was in the news, and young people came together. Some of his friends came together and raised 200 million for him. They said within one day. Okay, so if you can raise 200 million naira for Davido, why should you say that we can't raise 100 million naira for an APC form? So the goal there is collaboration. It's not that on our own individually, we might not be able to afford the 1 million naira presidential form. But when we begin to understand active citizenship and collaboration, you will understand that as young people, we have everything you think we don't have. We have access to everything you think we don't have access to. We are empowered enough with the right individuals, with the right knowledge to make a change. But the only challenge is that we are all isolated. So part of what we want to do through this session, and that's why we talk about your group work, your involvement in your group work, why those things are important is that we are helping you to learn to collaborate, to learn to build coalition together, to learn to do things together, so that we can now evolve into an organization that can demand what we want in our nation, and it becomes ours. So you can see the first step is activism. What value are we trying to, make sure that we push? Is collaboration. And what key outcome are we looking at is to have active citizens. The second stage of that process is engagement. Okay, so it means that by the time you graduate as a fellow, we want you to come into an environment where you are going to collaborate with others. That's the first step for you. We want you to become an active citizen. Okay, and then when you become an active citizen, the next one is that we want you to begin to engage. Engagement is going to do two things. It's going to build trust within us as an organization, and it's going to help us to build trust within the community. And that is how we can start inspiring change within the community. Okay, so we build trust within ourselves, and then we also build trust in the community, because as they see our own internal integrity, as they see our own internal development, as they see our own internal impact, what happens is that naturally they will now begin to see us as an organization that can be trusted. I think that why we want Nigeria to change, our passion should not necessarily be to run into politics, to run into government to demand for change, but to intentionally build an organization that will help us communicate in a distinct way what we want for Nigeria, what we want to see for Nigeria. And of course, the third level of that process is political participation. Here we now talk about voter education, policy advocacy, running for political office, candidate support and accountability, and this is the level of impact. Okay, so this is the roadmap. This is the guiding principle, because we believe that you need to learn to raise your voice, you need to network your power through trust, and then that is how you can see the change that you want within your community. Okay, so I said before that leadership and followership is a shared responsibility, meaning that through this fellowship, we want you to begin to raise your voice through a community. Okay, not to raise your voice in isolation, but to raise your voice through a community. The next one is now to release your power through trust. If we have trust within ourselves, our nation will grow further and faster. That is how we will see change within our community. If a nation is based on a guiding principle of fairness and merit, then nobody is going to wonder, do I need somebody to get to where I want to get to? No. You know that if you work hard, if you push hard, then things are going to work for you, irrespective of who you are, where you are coming from, or your family background, or your educational background. Okay, so as I conclude this session, I see Amina is already in my DM. So as I conclude this session, Amina and Joyce, finally, there's conclusion. Nigeria's diverse challenges requires holistic solutions, but they must be rooted in ideological principles. They must be rooted in ideological principles. So we have to adopt and adapt. So find what exists that we can adopt and then adapt it to our own individual challenges. Then Nigeria can now start overcoming its crisis and building a stable and prosperous future. Okay, so success lies in the collective effort of leaders, institutions, and citizens. Okay, so to have a progressive and successful society, there is need for us to form ideologies that will guide us as a nation. Intentionally, I didn't want to break into specific ideology, so I'm going to give you guys an assignment. And in the next session I'm going to have with you guys, we are going to break it down. So what do I want you guys to do? I want each group to discuss the Power Shift Africa ideology and its importance. Okay, make it personal within your group. Each individual should be able to share their thoughts. Okay, so I expect you guys to have an actual group meeting where you are going to discuss. Okay, we discuss this issue of ideology, discuss power shift ideology, how it affects you as an individual, and why it's important as an organization. And then the second thing I want you guys to do is to identify key ideologies that you believe should shape the socio-economic environment in Nigeria and why. Okay, so what are the key? You can do a research of other nations, do a research of nations where you believe things are working. Just take your time, but let each group come up with socio-economic ideologies that you believe will help Nigeria to emerge as a great nation. And then, of course, appoint someone who will do the presentation. Okay, so presentation day is going to be on the 14th of June. Okay, so thank you guys so much. I think this is an opportunity for you guys to, I'm not sure. I mean, are we taking questions or is it after the next session? Joy.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We so much appreciate, sir.
Thank you, guys.
You said Nigeria has done activism, but less collaboration. So engagement will help us to build trust. Thank you very much, sir. So I think we are fast spent. So maybe we can just and just two questions very fast. I mean, I think that is that okay? Two questions, then we can go to your presentation. Okay. Okay, so we can just take the first person. I think Edith, are you the first? So Edith, can you just go fast?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, sir, for that insightful piece of information. Now, my question is, considering our diverse nature as a country, we are diverse in so many areas, ethnicity and religion. How can we come together to form one common ideology that will help drive the nation forward? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, Joy, you said we are taking one question, right?
Yes.
Then maybe after the session, we can take more questions.
Yes.
So how we can form that ideology is first understanding that irrespective of religion, irrespective of ethnicity, what affects everybody in Nigeria is the same. If there is food hunger in Abuja, there is food hunger in Enugu. If there's insecurity in Abia, there is insecurity in Kano. So if there is unemployment in Lagos, unemployment will not say, okay, because you are from Lagos, you will not have unemployment. There will be unemployment in Jos. So you see that the challenges that affect us as a nation is not unique. Our language might be unique, but our problems are not unique. Our religion might be different. I might be Christian and you are Muslim. But you see, our problems are not unique. There is unemployment. There is crisis of leadership everywhere in the nation. So it means that what affects me affects you. Okay, so irrespective of our religion, irrespective of our, different ethnic association, we can now come together and say, okay, there is food problem in Nigeria, for instance. How do we fix it? in such a way that whether you are in the north or the south, you have enough food to take care of yourself and your family. What about our environment? How do we improve our environment? Okay, it's the same problem everywhere. That is why I said that the first step is we need to come to the table, identify what these issues are, and tell ourselves, what do we want as a nation? And then when we identify those things we want as a nation, it now forms the guiding principle, the guiding vision, the guiding plan for us to become whatever we want to be as a nation. In the absence of that, Nigeria as a nation cannot stand. And that is why this information is critical. And I often wonder, why is it that you elect political leaders? Nobody is talking about nationalism. Nobody is talking about national unity. Why do we have presidents and governors emerge and nobody is concerned about uniting the nation? It's to tell you that they don't even understand what the issues are. They don't even understand what the issues are. I was thinking this is going to be the first primary assignment when APC was taking over power the first time after Goodluck Jonathan. But when they started also making careless statements and they were not even interested in United Nations, I said, oh no, you have missed it. Any leader that must get it right in Nigeria must first of all start with national unity. You must start first of all by holding conversations, sitting down to ask ourselves, okay, what exactly do we want? Forget that I am the president. Let's sit on the table. What do you want? Okay, you want this. How does it benefit the South? Okay, South, you want this. How does it benefit the North? Okay, this is how it's going to benefit the North. Okay, this is how it's going to benefit the West. This is how. Then we sit down and we design it. If it's restructuring, we say, okay, if we decentralize, how does it affect the North? Okay, so this is how to make sure it doesn't affect the North. Okay, this is how to make sure it doesn't affect the East. After the end, we sign a guiding document. And we now go to the Constitution and now say, okay, does our Constitution reflect this guiding document? And if the Constitution does not reflect this guiding document, how do we modify the Constitution to reflect this guiding document? We modify that Constitution and then we stamp it and we go further down to the states, down to the local government, implementing our vision as a nation. Our inability to do that will continue to put us in a state of crisis. And that's why you are here. That's why we are giving you this invitation. Beyond just the fellowship, we will begin to work on these ideologies. Within us as an organization, we'll begin to expand to make sure that we reach Nigerians. If you look at the people who are joining this cohort, you will see that there is a careful selection of people from different aspects of the nation, because we want everybody's views to count. We want everybody to make contribution. I might come from the East. I might be oblivious of the issues that are from the North or from the West. But when I have my brothers and sisters from there and we sit down on the table, we'll begin to identify, these are the issues that bother me. These are the issues that concern me. I didn't have time to go into, even the issue of, let me not open it. Thank you. If I open it, I'm just going to go on and on. Let me just stop.
Thank you very much, sir.